Hey, welcome everyone. Let's give it a couple of seconds or so as people are filing in from the quote unquote waiting room. This is AMAC 360. My name is Ramon Lowe. I'm with the Airport Minority Advisory Council. Welcome for joining us. Welcome in joining us today here on this Good Friday. Hopefully we can have some good conversation, and I'm sure we will with Nigel Stephens on. So let's give it a couple of seconds as people file in, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, I think this is a good starting point. I'm just going to make a few introductions as I always do before we get to our guest. Like I mentioned, this is AMAC 360. This is our monthly virtual, usually typically a round table of subject matter experts, but we have someone today who can occupy the whole table himself. So I'm really, really excited to have him on and speak with him and share some of his thoughts with you. But before we get to Nigel Stephens, first and foremost, my name is Ramon Lowe. I'm the Director of Membership and Industry Engagement for the Airport Minority Advisory Council. And a couple of housekeeping items, like I mentioned, really two main ones. One, make sure you renew your membership. And that is really the key to unlocks many, many things. But the primary being that you renew your membership, then you're able to sign up for the annual conference, which is coming up at the end of June. And not that it bars you from registering for the conference, but it allows you to access the best discounts to register for the event. So please make sure you renew your membership and then make sure you sign up. Now, a lot of folks have been emailing me and saying, well, I had a membership, etc. No, for the most part, it's either been suspended or you just have not renewed. But please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll make sure between Ashley Clow and myself that we'll get the link for you to renew that membership. Also mentioned the annual conference. Yes, it is coming up. That is our Super Bowl, June 28th to July 2nd in the wonderful New Orleans, Louisiana. So we want to thank our partners at New Orleans International Airport for hosting us. And you can go to the website right now on our calendar and check out all our agenda, register. Like I mentioned, you can look at many sponsorship and opportunities, especially exhibit. So we are starting to have a pretty good run on booths. So if you're interested in exhibiting at our conference, if you're food, retail, on the AEC side, professional services, etc., please reach out to myself or sponsorships at amac-org.com if you are interested, and we will make sure to get the booths over to you. So with that, the guest of the hour, like I mentioned, his name is Nigel Stephens. He Okay, so just an idea that like technology always does technology things. I apologize for that. Um, Let me take a step back. Let me introduce Nigel Stephens. He is the principal for Phoenix Strategies, and he is also AMAC's political consultant. So Nigel has been extremely key in helping us to, let's just say, preserve and protect all the programs that we hold near and dear to our heart, obviously at the core of AMAC's mission. So Nigel, thank you again for taking time to speak with me.
Ramon, thank you very much for having me, and thank you to everyone on the AMAC team. Thank you to Ebony Wimbush, our executive director and president here at Airport Minority Advisory Council. You guys are at the cornerstone of economic development and growth in the country, right? It cannot be overstated the role that airports play, not only in bringing people into the country and around the country, moving people and materials, but also the role you play in really driving economic growth. And that's a message that we want to make sure is heard far and wide around the country. Um, Not only when it comes to the foreign dollars and foreign investment that you bring, that you facilitate, the international trade that you facilitate, the trade within states, within the United States that you facilitate, and just, recreation and travel, right? Some of the benefits, we're all entering the summer season now. And whether it's students coming home from school, whether it's summer family vacations, you guys are the engine that facilitates this type of growth and this type of connectivity. So be very proud of that, but also make sure that that message is heard throughout the government.
Thank you for reinforcing that, Nigel. And I should say that with time permitting, we will open things up for some Q&A at the end. So if you do have a question, please make sure you drop it into the chat, and we'll do our best to kind of to address them as best as we can. So I'm looking at the room, and I can see a lot of folks who probably will have some great questions for you, Nigel, specifically probably Carlo Nelson Chambers, because she's always got some good ones for us. So let's just take it from the top. It's been 3 weeks, about 3 weeks. It seems a lot longer than that since our Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum, which I will say, if you did not attend, I'm not. It was a rousing success, I should say. But I want to hear from you to first kind of like look at the three aspects of the Econ Forum. We had Hill Day. How did that go? Then obviously we had all of our sessions, but also just the reception overall that you were feeling from those who attended and those who spoke. But let's start with Hill Day. What were some of the highlights, or maybe some of the things that you were able to take away from the meetings that you learned about?
Well, we started off the day at the hotel, hearing from panelists that included Brian Bell, who is the staff director on the aviation subcommittee for the Dems. And then the next day, we heard from his boss, Rick Larson, who is the ranking member, the highest ranking Democrat on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Now, that was important for laying the groundwork for exactly what we were there to talk about, the impact and the role of airports, and the importance of making sure that elected officials around the country understand the footprint of commercial aviation, whether that's the massive airports that folks have all heard about, or maybe local regional airports that still have commercial flights going through them, but the role that those industries and those communities play in making sure that we grow local economies. So we heard got a kickoff from Farad Ali, who's on the board of directors, and then heard from uh, um, the folks from Minority Business Enterprise Legal Defense Fund, who is they are at the forefront of protecting these programs and fighting for these programs in the courts to make sure that we have legal representation. So Sarah Vonderlip came and spoke to us about the challenges that they're facing, and in particular, the court case that AMAC joined in trying to address some of the executive orders that are going after DEI and supplier diversity that create opportunities for many of our businesses. Then we went to Capitol Hill. This is now the third time I've been lucky enough to work with you guys on Capitol Hill to do a Hill Day, and it continues to pick up momentum. It continues to get more attention from members. I believe last year we had around 35 to 40 meetings with members. This year we had over 60 meetings with members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, we did have a number of Senate meetings with the senators themselves. I know a lot of our members of Congress were gone because of an unfortunate funeral for one of their colleagues. But we did have over 60 meetings and a lot of follow up, a lot of positive engagement from the member offices that are asking for more response, more engagement from AMAC's members. They want to hear from you more. They want to hear from you more often. They want more detail about your concerns and where you believe policies should be going that can help continue to drive economic growth in their congressional districts. We proved again, once and again, that when we go to Capitol Hill en masse, right, we are a strong voice coming from around the country converging on Washington, D.C. to make sure that they understand the role that we play in their local economies and in the national economy. And as we're facing some real headwinds when it comes to our economic growth, um, they're going to have to hear from us more and more, and they're asking to hear from us more and more.
Understood. And I know we had a lot of very, very active members, which I don't want to compare this year versus the previous years, et cetera. But at least to me, because as I've gotten a little more involved on this side, it seems like there's been a larger groundswell of engagement, not just for folks that were probably on ours, who probably lean on our side of the aisle, but or are in cities where we have greater concentrations of folks, but maybe even across the country where I think there's been more effort to kind of engage folks that probably don't probably don't won't vote or think along the lines that we do, but also maybe or beyond or in other districts that might not vote the same way. So what would you think, what would you say as far as some of the effort that would go towards engaging those folks? Again, like you've said it before, we can't just meet with one side. We got to make sure we meet with everybody and et cetera.
The message is resonating, and the message we're getting, I don't want us getting caught in a false paradigm of us versus them, of bigs versus smalls, of large corporations versus smaller diverse companies. This is an ecosystem that needs every single player within it to maximize their value and get the greatest value out. And if we're going to continue driving this economic growth that we're talking about, there are no members of Congress, I don't care what political affiliation you have, that are not interested in increasing jobs in their district, period. So we had great responses from a number of Republican members of Congress this year that welcomed us in and heard about it. And a lot of them didn't even understand the details or were able to connect the dots between a programmatic policy initiative and what was happening on the ground in their congressional district. And that's our responsibility. That's our role. That's what we need to do and bridge that gap of knowledge for them so they understand not only do we have to be participating in order to play a role in the airport ecosystem. That's everything from air traffic control all the way from that central to your actual flight, all the way to the shuttle bus that picks me up from my house and takes me to the airport, to what is my experience parking at the airport, to what's my experience moving my luggage into, do I go through with my luggage smoothly? Do I go through security smoothly? Am I able to, do some work or feed my family or do all these things? Am I able to do some retail shopping and enjoy my experience while I'm in the airport? All of those make up the entire airport ecosystem. We need to play a role in that as the small firms providing stronger supply chains and greater value to the large companies and to the airports themselves, but also making sure that they understand that each one of our businesses have our own supply chain, our own local businesses that we support because we pay rent, we pay our lease, right? We've got our own staff, we buy office supplies, so we have our own ecosystems that we maintain, and that's even more impactful on the congressional district because that's how those dollars churn. So making sure we can connect the dots regardless of political affiliation, party, or whatever it may be, because this is about American jobs. These are American companies in the United States working at airports in the United States, whatever part of the ecosystem that you fit in, engineering all the way to a kiosk for Smoothie King, right? Everything in between, we play a role in that, and that helps foster and facilitate that economic growth.
Got it. So I like that what you've always been, at least when I've been connecting with you and a handful of times that we have been able to connect. I like that how you kind of geared the conversation towards let's not make it to the three letters that seem to be the boogeyman out there for a lot of those folks, but let's make it where the numbers do not lie, the impact of these small businesses. And I think that's I just want to reinforce to not so much to you, but obviously everyone that's on this in this meeting right now that again, numbers don't lie. Our impact does not lie, and that's something that we need to continue to communicate to those folks. And we can touch upon it later as far as the work that you and the GA committee are doing to make sure that we are arming folks with necessary items to communicate that messaging. But my next question for you is, I said, it's been 3 weeks since we had econ. 3 weeks can seem like a long time, and a lot can happen even within a week. But I just want to give you kind of the opportunity to talk about what like the current state of play of the government with regards to the DBE program or anything that's similar to it. Um, I'm sure there've been a number of executive orders that have been issued out there, and it's just a lot. So I just want to return it to you to try and just give us like an update on what's been going on in 3 weeks since.
Unfortunately, the chaos continues. We know about the anti-DEI, anti-supplier diversity executive orders that came out on day one and day two of this administration. Okay. We know that this was fueled heavily and encouraged by the court cases against the DBE program, right? That filed the injunction against the court against the DBE program. This is bigger than just DBE and ACDBE. Okay, this is a larger whole scale attack on the infrastructure of private sector and public sector contracting. So just this week, we're in dog years at this point. This week, this Tuesday was April 15th. It's tax day, right? So while I'm a small business owner, we're all trying to get our taxes together and file before midnight. There was another executive order that was issued. This one which we expected this one to come. We've been looking for it for quite some time and hearing rumors about it. This one requires the wholesale restructuring of federal acquisition regulations. Basically, it targets anything that was not statutorily required by Congress needs to be reviewed for termination. So anything beyond what Congress had put into law to say this is what federal acquisition regulations must cover is at risk of being eliminated. What are some of those things? I mean, the big elephant in the room, which a lot of us are concerned about in the procurement world, is the rule of two. And for those of you guys who don't remember, the rule of two originally applied to anything under the simplified acquisition threshold. So anything below that number, I believe it's 250,000 or 500,000, between the purchase card level, anything below $2,500 purchase, you can just use your credit card, and up to that amount is the simplified acquisition threshold. That is set aside for small business if you have two or more businesses that are able to do the work. Well, in order to create greater opportunities for small businesses, notice I'm not naming a specific program. Yeah. I'm not talking about 8A woman-owned service-able veteran. I'm just talking about small business in general. They were using the rule of two, and even recently there was a court case saying whether or not the rule of two should apply to multiple award contracts. And the answer was yes. So the idea was, how do we then leverage larger contracts to still be set aside for small businesses to give them that capacity to grow? That's at risk. And if that falls, you're going to see a wide scale loss of access to contracts for small businesses for contracts above that few $100,000 where the simplified acquisition threshold sits right now. So this is a wholesale, and remember, the FAR also has a lot of the protections for reporting requirements, transparency, and accountability for prime contractors as well, of how they deliver their goods and services. It also governs how we acquire. There's a lot of work that we've been doing around AI and machine learning and how you purchase things, how you purchase software, how you purchase manufactured goods and things like that. These are all the rules that govern that. And when that goes away, we're highly at risk for improper activity, lack of transparency, and lack of access to small firms. And that's not small as in tiny as in our mind small. This is any company less than 500 employees that is considered small by definition of the SBA. So those are the things that have been happening in real time. In real time, your businesses, I talked to many of you when we were together on Hill Day. A lot of you guys are feeling the pinch because of the tariffs. Well, the temporary hold on the tariffs is just that, temporary. Okay, so a lot of you guys were dealing. I spoke with one lady who has concessions for duty-free zones, and the tariffs were eating away at her margins. We're going to see a lot more of that. The dollar has declined by, I think, 9% since Hill Day. We've had announcements of since Hill Day, right? It's just in 3 weeks, right? We've seen, while the White House is saying that, oh no, countries are tripping over themselves trying to call us to renegotiate their tariffs, we've seen announcements from China, we've seen announcements from Australia, India, even Canada saying, well, the old structure is gone. We need to rethink how we engage with the United States. those are folks that are traveling to the US. That's international trade. That's the strength of the dollar. That is where we get our supplies from for the manufactured goods that we would be manufacturing here in the US. That's where we get a lot of the supplies from to diversify our offerings in our stores, for the products in our stores. So a lot of these things are having some real significant impacts and compounding on smaller size businesses. And we're really feeling the crunch right now.
So this is more of a philosophical question, so I apologize. Just if you kind of like just you know, help me out. It seems like in history or anywhere, when there are such drastic changes as this one, like just wholesale wiping of norms or traditions and such, sometimes, I'm not saying all, there could be something at the end that made it seem like, oh, this is what not worth it, but like this triggered some new innovation or really forced a pivot because we just kind of puddling along the way we normally would. Do you see anything like that where there could be an actual bright light at the end of the tunnel for some of our businesses, or is this just a wholesale, just like slashing for the purpose of, benefiting a few? Because it seems like I'm trying to find some positive in this.
Yeah, my immediate answer is I don't know.
No one knows.
Um, because so here's let's use the example of government efficiency. Okay.
Mhm.
I've been an advocate for government efficiency since the Clinton administration, right? We had a balanced budget. It was not easy. While we were going through it, there was a whole lot of complaints on all sides, right? Um, but we were able to get a balanced budget and have 8 years of unprecedented economic growth. Okay. Um, they slashed the number of federal employees. They put freezes on wages, things that were not popular at the time. But we walked away with 8 years of economic growth, unprecedented economic growth, um, and a balanced budget. We've been trying to do things in the federal government to bring more efficiency since the Reagan administration, and it's been slow pace. And there have been a lot of proposals that have not really caught traction. And we've tried to do some things around the edges, but in a lot of places we didn't. Okay. There was a lot of demand for better government efficiency, for more government efficiency and smaller government. Okay. How you do it, on the other hand, right? It's, I've been in a lot of these speaking engagements when folks on panels refer to, oh, it's just like Humpty Dumpty, we'll figure it out. And I keep reminding folks, as somebody with young kids at home, I study Humpty Dumpty quite seriously. Okay. It didn't end well. That there was no repairing Humpty Dumpty. That's the whole purpose. That's the whole learning of that metaphor. All right, is you could not put it back together again. And I believe that some of the folks involved have that intention of, no matter what happens in the next couple days, whether between now and the first 100 days, whatever it is, whatever we end up with can never be what it was before. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not sure. The question is, can we weather the storm until that ends? And that's where I think a lot of our firms need to really do some analysis and figuring out how they pivot, how you diversify your business mix. So not as much of your business is focused. So a percentage of your business and your margins are coming from one area. How do you get bigger faster? Because if you're now in a situation where you're going after government contracts, those contracts, you're going to have much more capacity to be able to compete for a one, two, three, four, $5 million contract, because there are not going to be smaller contracts. They're not going to be breaking out and debundling, unbundling contracts for your niche capability. So we're going to have to get much bigger faster. What does that look like? Okay. If the ACDBE program and the DBE program are not available to you, what are the other levers you can pull? What are the other programs you can participate in? What are the other areas you can pivot to, so you can definitely use those other platforms for the customer to get to you? Right? Because I think we've unfortunately, the entire community has weighed and leaned too heavily on some of these programs for survival and maintaining their status to be able to compete in a smaller marketplace, right? So how do we now, in a new paradigm, pivot to, if they have service disabled veterans, if they got veterans programs that are available, if they're hub zone available, are you, if you're near an airport, you could probably be near a hub zone or in a hub zone. Can you leverage those programs? If different agencies are still utilizing women-owned business programs, can you certify into those? What can you do in order to shift your business model at the federal level and at the state and local level, and even in the commercial sector, to survive the storm?
I think that's one of the things that I was kind of in some ways getting at. This is forcing us to think a little differently or a lot differently now. You mentioned, having to pivot or just broadening the breadth of our skills as opposed to just leading into the depth of what we do. I think that was really echoed a lot during econ as well. And again, I've seen it when I'm talking to several members. Well, now I'm trying to get into food or I'm trying to get into professional services, what have you. Again, just kind of like spreading writ not spreading the risk, but really just
Yes.
make themselves a lot more valuable and relevant in this space.
That's you said it right the first time. You're spreading the risk, right? So you're diversifying your business mix, but then also internal business processes. Um, how are you leveraging shared service models? How are you leveraging cloud-based management systems and IT systems to become more efficient internally to reduce your overhead costs? How are you leveraging AI to streamline your processes, streamline your accounting, payroll, whatever it may be, in order to reduce your own overhead costs and increase your margins during a time like we all have to modernize. We have to lean in heavily on technology, on innovation, and essentially recreate ourselves in this new environment. Still be true to who we are and what we do in our business and our to our customers, but how can we adjust, whether it's internally or externally, in order to remain competitive?
Yeah, and I've been seeing that now, whereas 7, 8, 9 years ago, this necessarily didn't happen, but I know a lot of smaller firms are now having a lot longer discussions about, getting together and partnering to go after contracts or at least to pivot into other areas, which is really great to see. And I finally see that happening. Again, I just want to say, as before I go on to my next question for Nigel, if you have a question, please drop it into the chat and we'll do our best to kind of get to them at the end. You mentioned Doge earlier, and you're right. There have been several administrations that have, had to do cuts. I guess is it the matter of a scalpel versus a hatchet kind of cut? I don't know, but it seems like this is very, very extreme and obviously catching a lot of people's attention. My question for you though is with regards to the cuts and where they're coming from some very key agencies. The FAA, we saw MBDA get cut. The CFPB was just slashed, I think, by 90%. I think that was announced yesterday or so. What can our members, or actually anyone who's doing business in the space, really expect with if they have certification in progress or contracts en route, something as far as like what is the effect of all those cuts, at least in terms of the gears that are running the airport and all the paperwork that's going towards the running that airport contract.
So, so the administration has repeatedly told us to expect short-term pain.
Yeah.
We need to expect short-term pain, right? If they are going to continue to certify DBEs, if um, it's going to be significantly delayed. MBDA's office is a fraction of what it was 6 months ago. For those minority business development centers around the country that have their grants that have not been rescinded, they can expect that at the end of this fiscal year, that those grants will not get renewed. We've seen major cuts at staffing at the Department of Transportation. I mean, look, this is tax week, right? Usually, IRS is ramping up temporary workers to help process tax returns very quickly, right? Everybody hurried up to file your taxes on time so you don't get penalized. I know, got mine in 9 p.m. on the 15th. Great, wonderful. I don't expect my return in 2025, right? It's you had to get it submitted, but you have to understand there literally aren't as many people working in the offices to process and do the work of the government right now. 10,000, like you touched on it, right? Thousands of people every single day were getting an announcement. One day at CFPB, last week it was 10,000 at HHS, right? Um, Everything from healthcare to the Department of Education to TTS, the technology office at GSA, uh, major cuts. Okay, so you're gonna have to expect this is not business as usual, folks. Let me be very clear about that. This is not business as usual. This is not, oh, we've seen this before. All we have to do is do what we did last time and we'll be able to make it. That's not what this is. And I understand there have been conversations about, well, the ACDBE program is in statute, the DBE program is in statute. That means that we're protected. No, it does not. It absolutely does not. These executive orders, by the time folks have, are all of them legal? No. Some have already been overturned. Portions of some have been overturned. Okay. By the time you figure out whether or not that executive order is lawful, you then need to hire lawyers to go to court and have a case heard and a decision made in order for that to either come back your way or not. Okay. By that time, you got to ask, what is your business going to be capable of during that window of time? And we've talked about, these are Pacific Legal Defense Fund is extremely well funded. They are extremely well organized. They've got the backing of billions of dollars of conservative organizations behind them, right? Who are we hiring? Who are we paying to defend our programs? Who are we getting to defend our companies and so forth, right? We have to understand and engage in a different way, in a much more proactive way, in a much more connected way to hold those folks accountable that are responsible for implementing the policies or standing on the front lines, Congress, in order to stop some of this from happening. And I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans, I'm talking about Congress, period, has the responsibility of performing the oversight and legislating. There's a reason why the executive orders that have come out in the last 3 weeks, in the last month, really, have been very specific to highlight that what they are cutting is anything that is not explicitly in statute as congressionally directed. Because they learned from the court cases that they lost that they don't have the right to change law. But anything that is regulatory, anything that is a quote unquote norm, they can eliminate. So that's why they're going after those things. Now, the question that's going to come up is, well, if the DBE program is in law, which it is, it's in statute, and the only portion of the DBE program that was found to have that they applied the injunction for was because of the race and gender set aside, right? The classification, the presumption, the rebuttable presumption. Okay, so the program still exists in law. Now, they can now put a firewall of funding around it and not fund the offices. So there's not going to be anyone to implement the program. All right. The Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization is in statute. Public Law 95-507 has never been repealed or amended. That was the 95th Congress in the 80s. We're now in the 119th Congress, and it has never been repealed or amended. So the statute for the OSDBUs exists, but they were just cleared out at HHS. Their duties and responsibilities are getting cut back. Their funding is getting stripped down to nothing. Okay, so when an executive order comes out for CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, the fund, and MBDA to say you need to strip it down to the bare minimum necessary to implement what is explicitly written in statute, That now tells you that in order for us to have effective programs moving forward, we need to put more in explicit congressional legislative language and put that into statute. Because if being in statute as congressional intent is the only protection, then we can no longer rely on the administration. We can no longer rely on subject matter experts within the agencies to now design the program to implement the way we intend it to be implemented. We now have to be very explicit. This is where we come in our advocacy. We need to be very, very explicit in what are the needs that we have as business owners in order to continue driving this economic growth in the local communities, in our states, and in the nation. We have to do more homework now. If we want to stay in business, we need to collect data of our employees, our tax spend, our spend through our own local supply chains, right? What is our role as individual businesses? And can we collectively provide that information to you and the team at AMAC, Ramon? And can you now use that in order to explicitly state the importance of this business community, the roles and responsibilities of this business community as it applies to the economy, and also what our expectations are, what we need in law and in the congressional record in order to facilitate that continued economic growth.
I did want to go back to something. I don't mean to belabor the point. I really don't. But with regards to obviously the cuts and reduction in staffs and funding for a lot of these key departments and agencies, it's not eliminating them wholly, but it seems like it's kind of, I hate to say, it's starving them out in some way. So if we look back in history, I try to read a lot of history, but when you're trying to lay siege to a castle that's well fortified, it's got walls, it's got a moat. Obviously, you can't break in, but what do? You rob it of its resources. You cut away its supply chain. Things like that to where a point where eventually the people inside the castle do yield. Because is
Yes,
that kind of like the approach in some ways that this administration is taking? It feels like
you you will be an organization in name only.
yeah,
The Minority Business Development it was written clearly in Project 2025.
yeah.
They specifically stated, we have tried to eliminate this department many times. We've tried to wholly defund it and zero out its budget many times, and Congress keeps putting funding back into the office in appropriations bills. And then Congress had the audacity to pass legislation to put it into statute. So now it is a standing office that cannot be eliminated by the administration. So technically, they say we have to have an office, and there's not a whole lot of explicit statements around what their office is supposed to do. So what limited things are there, we can shrink it down to a staff of a handful of people that's not really going to be able to reach the audience in the local communities like they have been, right? So when you do reach out to your Minority Business Development Center, when you reach out to your Women's Business Center, when you reach out for technical assistance and loan advice and things like that from your Small Business Development Center, and they're not there to answer the call, right? When SCORE, the reason why SCORE is able to offer business counseling for free is because the foundation raises 50% of the funds from donations. The other 50% comes from the federal government. When that 50% grant is gone and SCORE is not available to you anymore, what are you going to do? You're going to sit back quietly? No, we're not going into the night quietly. Your businesses, your employees, and the companies that rely on you, your local community you cannot let them down by simply going quietly into the night.
Don't go quiet.
Okay. So yes, you're going to feel the effects. There's not, you're going, what you used to be able to get a phone call return back in a day. Now it'll be a month. Now it'll be 2 months. Okay. And in business cycles, we know how quickly that moves. That's a lifetime. So it's essentially, like you said, you're putting a castle under siege. But we will see the implications of that. But please, this is why we are being, and I want us to kind of talk about what's coming next,
Yep.
because We need your engagement. We need your financial support. We need your time. We need your volunteer. We need your organizational capacity. We need you to organize other businesses around you and in your ecosystem to say, I went to a small business development center. Because of the advice they were giving me, I was able to successfully grow my business to have X number of employees and X number of revenue and this amount of tax base and so forth. Without that support that you are now eliminating, Congress, or you're allowing to be eliminated, Congress, or you're not standing up to fight for, Congress, I would not be able to have the type of economic impact I have. And other businesses like mine are now struggling because they don't have that technical assistance, that capability, that access to capital, those things that we need to continue growing. So, what are you going to do about it, Congress? I'm not saying Republican, I'm not saying Democrat, I'm saying everybody. There are 535 elected officials up there that have a responsibility to their constituents. What are they actually doing about it?
Understood. Understood. Yeah, I do want to get onto the next because we do have to move forward eventually. And um, I do want you to talk about some of the things that you're working on with the GA committee, but also as the follow-up. I keep saying this to people who or whenever I talk to folks that our advocacy doesn't rise and fall just with econ. It has to remain sustained throughout the calendar. So would love to for you to share a little bit about the next steps that we're looking at, some of the things that you and the GA committee might be working on, and so that like our members can then be activated to kind of take advantage and hit up their legislators in their key markets.
Absolutely. And I do want to give a shout out to Ebony Wimbush on stage on day one to kick it off. She was very clear. This is not, this is the culmination of work for this event. This is the kickoff for our campaigns moving forward. This is the beginning, not the ending. Okay. We start off, we had our 60 plus meetings. We're going to send our follow up notes to those members next week, right? A lot of them were asking for what the next steps are, how can we be more engaged? Well, we've got a couple ideas of exactly how they can engage, right? Um, we're engaging. I know there's some investments happening right now to give the organization. I know there's a couple different pillars. There's the nonprofit educational side. There's the advocacy side, and there's the PAC. But on the advocacy side, the ability for you as individual companies to weigh in directly with your members of Congress through an automated system. So you can add in your personalized stories to these messages. So, and it's not, again, it's not just about DBE and ACDBE. You guys are business owners. You need to be heard on every single issue that is affecting your business. If you have issues because workers are afraid to come to work because of immigration policies, you need to make that be heard. If you're having issues because the upcoming tax bill is going to eliminate one of the tax benefits that you utilize to grow your business, or if there's a provision that's going to help you, they need to hear from you as business owners. The tariffs, if the tariffs are affecting your ability to bring goods and products into the country, either for manufacturing or for sale, and that's eliminating your business in the US, which is hiring American people, right? Those are American workers working in American airports. This tariff is now directly affecting that. They need to hear from you about that, right? We are going to organize that structure and build that infrastructure that gives you the ability to do that on a regular basis. And that's exactly what the members of Congress were asking us for on Hill Day. You said, we need to hear from you on a regular basis. Well, we are going to definitely address that. And then the last piece is on the political side, we are moving forward with a robust strategy for our political action committee. Those folks, we are making very specific asks. We are keeping track of who is supporting our efforts and who's not, who's responsive and who's not, who's engaged and who's not. And those folks that are supportive and are engaged and are supporting the issues that we care about that are going to help us continue to grow airports and all the businesses that work in that ecosystem, they will be supported by the political action committee to help them get reelected. This is politics at its most basic form. All right. You support us. These are our issues. We represent this industry. We represent these businesses. And if you're doing things that supports us, we will make sure that we help you get reelected. All right. So, and again, it's business, right? Look at the infrastructure bill, Inflation Reduction Act, right? The infrastructure bill had billions of dollars for terminal modernization, not just FAA, not just air traffic control and safety and stuff, which is all absolutely important, but the terminal modernization is what is going to transform our airports from simply being transportation hubs to being robust economic hubs. And that's where a lot of our companies play. So simply wiping that away because a previous administration did it, right, is not, or letting things expire because a previous administration did it. We need to weigh in and say, no, no, no. This is having real effects on helping us grow jobs and business and capitalism, tourism, entrepreneurship, all these things that everybody should be agreeing to. We're helping create that in your local jurisdiction because of these issues, because of these programs, and we want it to continue.
Understood. Well, thank you so much for that, Nigel. So I'm going to open it up to anyone who, if you have a question, please drop it into the chat, and I will do my best to ask Nigel of it. And again, just as I know some folks are starting to type some stuff in, basically this is supposed to be a member only program, and I went in and pretty much approved anyone who signed up. Normally we will check and filter out those who are not members, but this is really a reason and a good reason, really great reason for you to become a member of AMAC. Please go to our website and join if you aren't ready, because basically your support, financial, your contacts, etc., go a long way towards helping us preserve these programs, not just again for our members, but not just for you, but really for this entire industry. So please make sure you do that. I see Carla has a question. Can we find out how our congressional representatives are voting on the various minority business programs?
So this is part of the challenge. First of all, yes, let me answer that. Yes, we are designing a scorecard. And once we have that scorecard finalized, we can then now compare individual member votes to those specific bills. So the answer is yes in short form. The other challenge is not a whole lot of legislation is moving.
Hmm.
A lot of legislative activity is not occurring right now. They're not even having a lot of oversight hearings around those type of issues. So part of our ask is we're going to ask our members of Congress to go on the record, to go on the congressional record, right? To yes, we can definitely look up past votes, yes, right? But as of right now, we could say, where are you? Where do you stand right now when it comes to these executive orders? Are you going to go on the record? Are you going to put something out? Are you going to put something statement? That's a yes or no response, right? That's a checkbox. Did you do it or not? If you did it, then tell me what date you went to the floor of the House of Representatives. Tell me during which hearing you made the statement. Show me the press release that you sent out. Show me the statement where you made at a town hall meeting about these issues. Show me. Because if you didn't do it, I'm going to hold you accountable for it. If you did it, then I'm going to acknowledge you doing it and showing appreciation through my membership. Right. So the other thing on the past votes, we pull that. We can even go back to last Congress, but the issue is, can we address it for this Congress? Because now, if we can't say we didn't make the ask last year or year before, now we're making the ask. We're going to be very, very explicit. You're going to know when bills are coming up. We're going to be sending comments and asking people to co-sponsor bills. So it's a very, once again, yes or no. Did you co-sponsor? You got 200 letters from your members from your district of business owners asking you to co-sponsor this bill. I can tell you right now, because of the concerns around this executive order to rewrite federal acquisition regulations and potentially undermining the existence of the rule of two, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez from New York has already introduced legislation to put the rule of two into statute. So that's a very clear, either you support it or you don't. If there are two or more small businesses capable of doing the work, it should be a small business set aside, period. It's a two-page piece of legislation. If you support it, great. If you don't support it, that's up to you. But don't come down during Small Business Week to the floor of the House and do the nonsense that gets they wave around some piece of paper and say small business is the engine of the economy.
What have you done
Well, what
before?
did you do to fuel that engine?
Yeah.
What did you do to support that? All right. What are you doing? Don't complain about our economy if you're not doing the things necessary to keep it functioning effectively. All right. America's competitive advantage is the ability to take innovative ideas, turn it into products and services, and then connect that in a small business environment, grow it, and then transfer that over to large businesses, whether either the company grows to become a large business or gets sold or whatever that process may be, and scale. Right? Microsoft got a small business loan, got an SBA loan. Winnebago got an SBA loan. Right? A lot of these companies, uh, Tesla, for God's sake, it's got multiple. Take the idea, allow small business to do what it does best, is bring great ideas and tools to market and products to market, and then scale it. I'm concerned that what we are doing right now to undermine that small business portion of it, to undermine the programs and pathways to bring more entrants to the marketplace, more diverse entrants, whether that be women, minorities, whoever it may be, regional diversity, ideas based, different tools. How many different types? I don't. Not all batteries need to be lithium ion. Who's coming up with the other version of a battery that can be used for something, right?
Yeah.
Different competition brings, breeds innovation, brings cost savings. If we break that process, I don't know how we get that engine started again.
Yeah.
And we are going to lose a global competition that we have been dominating since World War II.
And I think that's what I was kind of getting at in terms of like all this mess that's been going on. Typically, it will look, COVID, the pandemic, when we were cut off from supply chain or microchips. We outsourced a lot of that stuff. Now we're building plants here domestically, So I see a lot of good that can potentially come out of all of this. At least I'm praying that we do. A couple other questions in the chat, and this is from Siobhan Higgins. We talked about this before, or at least she and I have. If we live and work in very blue districts, how do we affect areas that are not aligned with our mission? And I think she's speaking specifically, and I'll speak for you, Siobhan, where she lives in the area that's very blue, but I know, I guess, an adjacent district has a very vulnerable, candidate, I should say, on the other side of the aisle. And what is the work?
Data, 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 data. Okay. Ignore these artificial lines on the map that are these weird congressional districts that are written on. Like I work for, back in the days, I used to work for Congressman Albert Wynn from Maryland, and we laughed because his district looked like a dumbbell. It was a bubble here, a strip up a highway, and another bubble here. These are artificial barriers. Your suppliers come from all around you. The companies you partner with are all around you, right? Unless it's strictly by a county line, you probably cross congressional districts and don't know it every day, right? So the question is, how do you then get the data necessary to still prove that point? Because if you have a county that's split and half the excuse me, half the county is blue and the other half of the county is red, well, the work that's done around that airport applies to the entire county. So arm your legislators with the data that they need to do one of two things: highlight the importance of these programs and highlight the importance of these businesses to the local economy and talk about what they are doing to help continue to drive it, or eliminate any excuses that member has to say that they didn't know that what they were doing or not doing was having an intentional negative effect on their local economy. Make them have to defend the position that says, um, we need jobs, we need entrepreneurs, we need investment, we need folks coming into these communities and through these communities that spend money from outside the community, that bring new resources in. Make them defend sitting back and not doing anything. But don't let anyone off the hook by saying, oh, I didn't know. Yes, you did. You got 250 letters last month. We showed up to your town hall meeting. We met with your staff. We met with, you can't say you didn't know. Now, the question is, what did you do to act on that?
Back in the court. We do have time just for one more question, and this comes from Rachel Goodman. She had to jump, but is there anything that an airport can do to assist with moving the agenda forward? And again, this is being recorded, so we're going to provide this recording on our YouTube channel next week sometime, and that's why she's asking because she had to jump, but she'll definitely listen in.
You continue to collect the data regardless of the ongoing efforts to drive you otherwise. You know you have a business imperative. The facts are the facts. Diversity is good for business. Diverse supply chains are good for business. Localized business offerings, localized food and kiosks are good for your airport business, right? If I go through, I live in the DC metro area, right? Um, if I go through BW, I can go through BWI, I can go through National, I can go through Dulles at any time to fly where I need to go. I'm going to go to the airport that gives me the best overall experience. And if I know that I'm going to have 2 hours sitting in an airport, 3 hours sitting in an airport to do, can I do my business? Does the Wi-Fi work? Can I find a restaurant? Is it going to be the same restaurant that I have in every other location? Or am I going to see something that's uniquely Baltimore? If I go through Memphis airport and I've got a 2 hour layover and I can't find Memphis barbecue anywhere in the airport, right? What's the benefit of flying through Memphis? Right? If I can't get a crab cake in Baltimore, right? Those are the things that are the unique experiences, the value add. Wait a minute, I can get a Ben's Chili Bowl dog. I can Ben's Chili Bowl hot dog, and well, why is Ben's Chili Bowl important for somebody coming from nowhere? Oh, that's a historic place in DC. I don't have to leave the airport. Okay, great, wonderful. That somebody just said the
First and last thing you see.
it's the first and last thing you see. Airports are the welcome area. It's the reception area for the country. How we greet people and how they experience that will determine whether or not they come through the country and spend a lot of money. They come as repeat visitors, right? They're encouraged to go to other cities, right? This is driving economic growth. I don't want us to don't pigeonhole me and my businesses and my right into this category of you guys are just minority businesses. No, that's how you start making ridiculous arguments around merit that don't make any sense, that don't add up, right? No business gets a contract for anything other than merit because no business owner is going to pay money to somebody that does not do the work and that he cannot believe do the work. No one's throwing away money. Last time I checked, no business owners are throwing away money. I don't care what size business you're running. So you have to be successful and capable of delivering for me to do business with you. So and let's eliminate this whole meritocracy false narrative nonsense for what it is, right? But the airports need to help make the argument and they need to continue collecting the data around not only the role that they play, but the role that their ecosystem plays in their cities and in the adjacent communities around the airport.
Awesome. Well, Nigel, thank you again for your time as always, and always great enlightening at the very least, informative for our members. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you, Ramon, for hosting. Thanks to Ebony and the whole AMAC team. And thanks to all of you for participating today. I know it's Good Friday and it's beautiful outside, so I know everyone wants to get out, gotta get out of the office. But guys, it's we have to have hope that this too shall pass. but it will not change. It will not pass. It will not improve if we don't buckle down and do the work and make the sacrifice. We've got to get engaged and participate in AMAC. You need to call your colleagues and other companies that you know that aren't members. Tell them we need you to get engaged because we need you to be a part of this fight. We need you to support the Legal Defense and BELDEF, Minority Business Legal Defense Fund, to go to court and protect these organizations that are being sued, these programs that are being sued, and we need you to support the PAC. The Political Action Committee is structured; it cannot solicit funds from anyone outside of the organization. So you have to be an AMAC member in order to contribute to the Political Action Committee. So at this point, this is survival, and we need to all engage. And I know the team, I will do my part, the team's going to do their part, but we all need the business owners to engage heavily and weigh in with your members of Congress and be supportive of all of these various efforts.
Well, thank you again, Nigel, and thank you everyone for joining us. As Nigel said, this is a good Friday. Let's go out and make it a great Friday. Everyone enjoy your weekends, and enjoy Resurrection Sunday, and we will see you soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.